afternoon, everybody. Let me be clear. President Trump and his entire administration stand fully behind the heroic men and women of ICE.
We know.
And will always uphold law and order. And
well, you know, unless it's the J6 riders, then he'll pardon them all, so.
In the United States.
He's not really a law and order kind of guy.
Of America. The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement
are being impeded by pigs in ICE who are going around black bagging people in the street and doming American citizens.
are under organized attack.
Sorry,
right now,
I speak propaganda. I'll translate for you guys.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 32...
Only 1,200%?
Let's up those numbers!
3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats.
Let's up those numbers!
ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals and
assassinate American citizens in the street. At this point, I mean, maybe that is what they elected them to do because they're all defending it, so.
The Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed.
No, they just don't want, you know, murder squads roaming the country in places where they clearly are not welcome and then, you know, gunning people down in their cars, but.
As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances.
I would argue that, ICE is the, you know, entity causing heightened tensions. Are you streaming on just Twitch or YouTube also? I am live on YouTube. Let me see how I can do this. Whoops.
That make it nearly impossible for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs. Democrats are calling to defund federal law enforcement agencies who are protecting public safety. And Democrats are calling to abolish ICE and defund the police. That will never be allowed to happen under this president and vice president. The Trump administration...
Those impeachment numbers are looking a little tough. It's starting to look like Trump might not be around too much longer.
Will redouble
hopefully
our efforts to get the worst of the worst, criminal illegal alien killers, rapists, and pedophiles off of American streets. The department...
But you have pedophiles in the Oval Office, so make it make sense, Caroline Leavitt.
Of Homeland Security will continue to operate on the ground in Minnesota, not only to remove criminal illegal aliens, but also to continue conducting door-to-door investigations of the rampant fraud that has...
Why are they allowed to lie like this? Because they have about 20 years of propaganda, propagandizing of the right wing under their belt. So these people will eat up anything they get served.
Has taken place in the state under the failed and corrupt leadership of Democrat Governor Tim Walz. Taxpayers have been ripped off to the...
Bro, the fact that Tim Walz is about to deploy the National Guard against ICE actually makes me think I would vote for him as president. Or, you know, Newsom Walz, I'd vote for that ticket in a heartbeat.
Tune of billions of dollars in this one state alone. And that is going to end, and people are going to be held accountable. The Trump administration has activated thousands of federal agents, doubled the number of U.S. attorneys in the DOJ office in Minneapolis, and surged resources to hold fraudsters accountable and demand justice for law-abiding American taxpayers and citizens across our country. And that's what brings the Vice President out here with me today to discuss all the Trump administration is doing and to make an additional important announcement on this front. So please, Mr. Vice President, will be joining us now.
The fact that they're willing to so brazenly lie about this should tell you everything you need to know.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I want to echo some of what Carolyn said about what we're doing to combat the rampant fraud that exists in our immigration system, thanks to failed politicians and thanks to people who allowed the American taxpayer to be taken advantage of for far too long. I think it's important to understand why this matters to the American people. I am a father of 3 young kids, a lot of people in my generation. What is that going on there? Is that normal? Okay. CNN installed this broken camera just to throw me off my game, but it's not going to work.
Attacking the media, one of the characteristics of fascism, by the way. Classic Trump admin move.
So here's the simple fact here. If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others.
Which is why the Biden Department of Justice prosecuted this over a year ago already. This is a fake fraud scheme that they're talking about. This has already been prosecuted, like in Minnesota by the Biden Department of Justice. So this notion that there's some rampant fraudulent scheme occurring by those Somalis in Minnesota is just an invented fantasy to justify this violent action by the Trump administration, nothing more.
Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number 2, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with.
Nobody's fleecing the United States harder than Donald Trump, hence why he put out a crypto rug pull shitcoin to scam his own supporters. Okay, nobody is fleecing Americans to a greater degree than Donald Trump. His shitty, stupid tariffs are costing us $150 billion annually, and his cult members just eat it up. They just eat it up. So don't ever believe them when they pretend to give a fuck about any of this.
We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible.
Unless, they storm the Capitol, then we'll pardon them all. And, unless they rape children, then we'll cover up their names. Give me a fucking break.
Is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way.
That is very true. And it has been done by none other than the federal government and pigs like J.D. Vance.
I want to thank a couple of people for their cooperation, in particular Pam Bondi, our Attorney General. First of all, for getting a lot of resources to Minneapolis to start to investigate and prosecute this fraud, really at an industrial scale. We've never seen fraud like this in the history of our country. Pam has been doing a great job to get the resources there to uncover it. But importantly, creating a job like this often takes months, sometimes even longer. When we realized that we needed this Associate Attorney General position, Pam got this person up and running in about a week. We're going to make the nomination hopefully in the next few days. We'll obviously let you guys know who that is when we do it.
I'm sure
I've
it'll
talked
be
to Senate
disgusting.
Majority Leader John Thune, who has promised me swift confirmation for this official. But this is the person who is going to make sure that we stop defrauding the American people. Here's one.
Okay. Is he going to invest Donald Trump in his family? The Trump crime family. That should be operation numero uno, my friend. Sorry, number one. I know Republicans are scared of other languages, but
Final thing I'll say about this. I've heard a lot of people say that we need a special counsel to investigate fraud in the United States of America. I actually agree, and that's what this position does. It has all the benefits, all the resources, all the authority of a special counsel, but with two crucial differences. Number one, it will be run out of the White House under the supervision of me and the President of the United States.
Then it's fucked.
And number two, it's actually constitutionally legitimate. As you guys may know,
now we care about the Constitution after violating it to, you know, kidnap the president of Venezuela, or how we're going to use to violate the Fourth Amendment to go door to door knocking. You know who else knocked on doors searching for people to kidnap? Some group of people. Oh, I can't remember. Oh, wait. Oh, it was Nazis. Nazis did that.
The special counsel statute has some major constitutional questions. When we get the bad guys, we want to make sure we get them permanently and they don't have some legal technicality they can get out of, which is why we set it up as an associate attorney general. I'll take some questions, but I want to make just one final observation here. When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline. I'm just going to read it.
Well, he's going to attack the media again. Classic fascist move.
Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well,
yep. I mean, there should be. That I agree with JD Vance. That headline is bad because it shouldn't say ICE agent kills. It should have said ICE agent murders woman in Minneapolis. But
that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over
it's not the corporate media. It's on video, you lying piece of trash.
Last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally because this was an attack on federal law enforcement.
No, this is an attack on American principles by federal law enforcement and by the federal government.
This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people.
It is an attack on law and order, and it is an attack on the American people. That's why an American woman was shot in the head 3 times by ICE pigs.
The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law...
True, they should be more blatant about how disgusting and vile this fascist murder squad these pigs are sending around is.
Enforcement officers at risk every single day.
I mean, the legitimacy of ICE has been completely tarnished. They don't deserve respect. You should not respect their authority. You should defy it at every opportunity.
What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by
if only
a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you
and if that had happened, this woman would be alive. So
maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him.
Oh, he's a little sensitive, so he has to shoot a woman 3 times in the head. He was just a scared little bean. He was just a scared little bean.
Automobile. What that headline leaves out is that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation.
Legitimate is definitely a stretch.
In the United States of America. What that
this
headline
is just straight up propaganda. Who buys this shit, dude? You have to be such a bootlicking pig to buy into this.
Leaves out is that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. If the media...
By the way, speaking of dox...
wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to...
I only see one group of people using domestic terror techniques, and you should look in the mirror, JD Vance.
Try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. The President stands with ICE, I stand with ICE, we stand with all of our law enforcement officers. And part of that is recognizing that you people in the media, not everybody in this room, but many people in this room have been lying about this attack. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. She was
trying to drive away while she was being harassed by the federal pigs you fascist freaks are deploying around the country. Clearly, ICE is not welcome in these communities, so maybe you should stop agitating, you domestic terrorist piece of shit.
Back, he defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis.
No, she was actually a hero because she was interfering with the ICE pigs who were trying to kidnap people off the street. So
When a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Nope.
Every single one of you. Question.
I think she was a brave American patriot.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I wanted to read a quote from Tim Walz earlier today. He said, "When things looked bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held the line for the nation on July 3rd, 1863, and I think we may be in that moment now." Can you comment on his rhetoric and Mayor Jacob Frey and whether they want to see unrest in Minneapolis?
Well, that's very tough rhetoric from a guy who just quit because his fraudulent activities have been uncovered. Look, Tim Walz is a joke. His entire administration has been a joke.
This entire administration has been nothing but a series of very dark and sad jokes.
Idea that he's some sort of freedom fighter, he's not. He's a guy who has enabled fraud and maybe in fact has participated in fraud. That's what this new Assistant Attorney General position is going to find out. I don't care what Tim Walz says. I care about getting to the bottom of this fraud for the American people, and I care about enforcing the nation's immigration laws. That's what we're going to stay focused on.
A related question here. I mean, Democrats have accused ICE of murder. They've said they're targeting Americans. They've told ICE to get the F out of Minnesota.
They should get the fuck out of Minnesota and every other community in which they're unwelcome. Go hang out in the bootlicker communities that they are welcome in.
This is going to stoke the fire against ICE agents, and you're talking about ICE agents right now.
Hopefully.
I'm concerned about them. What, if anything, is the administration going to do to make sure these folks are protected during these protests? But also, should DHS sort of revisit their procedures here? I mean, nobody wants to see an American killed. Are there changes that need to be made to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Look, first of all, of course, nobody wants an American citizen to be killed. This is absolutely a tragedy, but it's a tragedy of the making of the far left.
Nope. It's a tragedy of the making of the Trump administration. They have blood on their hands.
Radicalized a very small segment of the population, taught them that ICE agents are engaging in wide-scale violation of people's rights.
That is absolutely without a shadow of a doubt happening. I mean, there are countless pieces of evidence to show that that's happening. You have to be willfully blind to deny that reality.
What our ICE officers are doing is deporting the millions of criminal aliens that were let in during the Biden administration. So number one, we have to say, as a matter of leadership, and I would appreciate if the Democrats would join me on this, let's be honest about the fact that we have way too many illegal aliens in this country. Our ICE officers should be supported.
This is a fake imagined problem, to be clear. This is so stupid. You just have to be living in a false reality to buy into this. Like, yes, you're right, JD Vance. There are so many illegals ruining my life that we have to send ICE to kill American citizens in the street. So true.
Doing their job. You're trying to actually marshal the far left lunatic fringe to engage.
This is definitely this is definitely someone with good intentions, for sure. Absolutely. You can tell by the way he calls people far left lunatic fringe. You can tell that this guy definitely wants the best for our country, and he really is suited for leadership. Like, no, this dude is a propagandist. That's why he's in the role he's in, is because he's a propagandist.
In doxing, to try to make it impossible for them to enforce the law, and in some cases actually to engage in acts of domestic terrorism against our law enforcement officers.
The law enforcement officers are the ones engaged in domestic terrorism.
When you talk about different plans, different protocols, different policies, I forget exactly how you asked the question. Here's the simple fact. What we're going to do is make it easier for the American people's administration to enforce the American people's law. And that means that Democrats have to stop rallying the mob against legitimate law enforcement operations. And that means that we are going to get tougher. And that's what this AAG position is about.
The boot is coming down harder. And I'm sure plenty of people are firmly in position to fucking lick it clean. But thank God people are waking up to how fucking violent and grotesque this administration is.
We're going to get tougher at the people.
Americans are finally waking up to reality.
Who are defrauding the United States by inciting violence against our law enforcement officers.
The people who are defrauding the United States by inciting violence is the Trump administration and ICE, to be clear.
That's one of the things that we're going to do. We've already started that work at the Department of Justice, but we're going to keep on doing it, and this new AAG position is going to kick that into high gear.
Vice President Vance, you just suggested that this woman who was killed, Renee Good, is part of a broader left-wing network. Who do you think is behind this broader left-wing network?
these questions, bro. Nobody is. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. It's a propaganda talking point that is being wheeled out by these fascist pigs.
Well, it's one of the things we're going to have to figure out, but here's the way that I put it. When somebody
no answer, but he's just going to go on some other unrelated tangent, some propaganda rant. Crazy.
Throws a brick at an ICE agent, or somebody tries to run over an ICE agent, who paid for the brick? And who
paid for the brick? This dude's and so is anyone who buys into this garbage.
Protesters to show up and engage in violent activity against our law enforcement officers. You see, just with this most recent terrible incident in Minneapolis, you see friends of this
Tucker Carlson is a threat. Tucker Carlson is a pussy Russian asset. Don't worry. When rubber meets the road, Tucker Carlson will be long gone.
Or other people who are eyewitnesses saying basically that she was there to engage in obstruction of a legitimate law enforcement operation. How did she get there? How did she learn about this? There's an entire network, and frankly, some of the media...
Yeah, there's a network of people saying, hey, these fucking pigs are in our community stirring shit up again. Oh no. Oh no. People communicate about when their communities are being invaded. Oh no.
Are participating in it that is trying to incite violence against our law enforcement officers. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous.
ICE has no authority or legitimacy remaining in the eyes of any actual, like, patriotic American citizen.
And part of our investigatory work is getting to the bottom of it. Who's funding it? Who's supporting it? Who's cheerleading it? And of course, if there's illegal activity...
defying ICE, I will cheerlead until my death, bruh.
Related to that, we're going to get to the bottom of that and prosecute it.
Or until ICE is just restored to a normal agency again, like they were under George Bush or even the first Trump term. I didn't like either of those presidencies, but no one was saying that ICE were being violent Gestapo kidnap units, sorry, because they weren't acting like that. That's what they're doing now. So until order is restored, until law and order is restored and ICE is returned back to what it's actually supposed to be doing, instead of just being Donald Trump's secret police force, I encourage anyone to be speaking out, cheerleading against ICE, and not bending the knee to this like fascist domestic violence like onslaught that is being carried out by the Trump administration. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. How far we've fallen.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for taking questions today. Is there a risk with you describing her as a deranged leftist, talking about very specific...
Is there a risk to you completely propagandizing and speaking about this soccer mom of 3 children as a domestic terrorist because your little secret police force put 3 bullets in her head? Is there any risk to that, Mr. Vice President? What a world we live in.
Facts of these events. When an investigation is just beginning, are you preempting a thorough investigation by drawing such conclusions? And have you received any information beyond the videos we've seen publicly about this individual, her specific acts, that has informed your point of view?
Well, first of all, the Department of Justice is going to investigate this. The Department of Homeland Security is already investigating this. But the simple fact is...
Well, you know, the Minnesota state government was also investigating this, and the Trump administration blocked it because, you know, when someone's blocking an investigation, you know that's how you can tell they're the good guys, when they're blocking investigations with zero legal precedent, and yet they're wheeling out legality as some sort of precedent here, or legal authority as some sort of precedent here for, you know, doming an American citizen 3 times in the head for trying to drive away. But suddenly, legality doesn't matter when it's time to stifle an investigation of the conduct of a federal officer. Interesting how that works.
What you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who was trying to obstruct...
What you see is what you get in this case. First true thing he said. What you have is a woman trying to drive away while ICE police, who are unwelcome in this area, who are agitating in Minneapolis, are trying to open her car and detain her, and they shoot her 3 times in the head. That's what you get. Cold-blooded murder in broad daylight. It is what you see is what you get here. Yes.
A legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who...
It's not a legitimate law enforcement operation.
Officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who is marshaled...
No, it's a tragedy of the far right. and the Trump administration deploying ICE into places to harass and cause chaos and disrupt communities because they fall for stupid talking points on Twitter. Like, why are ICE being deployed to Minnesota again? Oh, because of a Nick Shirley video? Oh, a Nick Shirley video about a fraud scheme that isn't even happening and was already prosecuted under the Biden Department of Justice, by the way. Like, it's all just false reality. It's all just fake, made-up bullshit to justify violent action by the federal government.
An entire movement, a lunatic fringe against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement, but why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
Just to follow up on that question, and again, thank you for taking questions, Mr. Vice President. There's clearly a lot of emotion in Minnesota, across the country, over this incident. You're calling Renee Good a deranged leftist. There's been heated rhetoric that we've also heard from officials. What responsibility do you and the
Not
president...
only will this government shoot you in the head, but then they'll piss on your grave, bro. That's where we are.
...have to diffuse some of the tension that we are seeing play out in Minnesota, bring down the temperature as this investigation is unfolding?
What we have a responsibility to do is to protect the people who are enforcing the law and protect the country writ large. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you deserve to have the people's laws enforced in the United States of America.
True.
Now, again, I don't want...
Obviously, these people have no interest in doing that, of course, but true.
I'm not happy that this woman lost her life. I'm not happy that this woman was there at a protest.
No, you're not happy about it because it's making it obvious to the American public how violent and fascistic this government has become.
Violating the law by interfering with a law enforcement action.
Since when do you give a fuck about violating the law? Donald Trump pardoned 1,600 rioters who invaded the Capitol on January 6th with the goal of subverting the peaceful transition of power and overthrowing democracy. So since when does this administration feel like they have any position or any moral high ground to preach about the rule of law? Give me a fucking break. The president himself was committed on like 34 counts of felonious charges, by the way. And then the Supreme Court said, oh, the president can't commit crimes, actually. So here we are. You elect a criminal president and you get a criminal administration and a violent, murderous administration at that.
We can all recognize that the best way to turn down the temperature is to tell people to take their concern.
As he comes out here and talks about deranged, violent, fringe, radical leftists, turn down the temperature. Go fuck yourself, you fucking pig.
About immigration policy to the ballot box. Stop assaulting and stop inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's the best.
Stop inciting violence against migrants over fantasized problems that aren't really happening. What about that?
Way to take down the temperature. And we're not going to give in to terrorism on this. And that's exactly...
You are the terrorists here.
Exactly what's happening. People trying to antagonize, to commit acts of violence.
That's what ICE is doing. They're antagonizing. They're shooting people.
Bricks at them. Sometimes they shoot at them. Sometimes they dox them. Sometimes they go to their place of residence and harass.
He's literally just describing ICE's modus operandi. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? What are we doing?
Their families. This is classic terrorism.
And I agree. You did just describe terrorism. It's just that you described everything ICE is doing. So...
cannot say that
and I'll be clear about this. I've said this 1,000 times. Nobody gives a fuck. If ICE was actually just going and trying to deport like violent criminal migrants or whatever, fine. I would be fine with that, but that's not what they're doing. They're going around these communities. They're going on high speed 90-mile-per-hour chases through school zones. Like they're shooting American citizens in the head. Like, what else do you really need at this point to realize like what's happening here? It's
far
fucked.
left fringe is inciting violence against our brave law enforcement officials that we're no longer going to enforce the law. That's rewarding the very people who are engaged in this garbage. The actual reward that they just got is a new assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate this stuff even more aggressively than before.
Yeah. Thanks for taking
Thanks for taking my question. So the head of Minnesota's investigations agency says that the U.S. Attorney's Office has essentially cut off the state investigations agency's access to the investigation. What is the precedent for that, and why?
What is the precedent for that, JD Vance? I'm sure he'll have since this is the administration of law and order, I'm sure he'll have a really well-reasoned explanation for why the Minnesota investigation has just been totally cut off from investigating this murder yesterday. I'm sure JD Vance will have a very good, reasonable, explanation for this with strong legal precedent to support his position, right? The administration of law and order, right? Surely he will, right?
Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation.
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many.
Oh, so he's not going to answer the question at all. He's just going to go into a propagandist rant. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
People who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate
Why
law
the fuck are you investigating us, bro? Investigate them. Don't investigate us. Gotcha. Oh, darn. I was hoping we were going to get some sort of, legal or even just a basic response, to that question. What legal precedent do you have for shutting down a state level investigation into federal officer conduct? That almost sounds like it's a check on the power of the federal government. Remember, aren't you guys the states' rights people? What happened to that, JD Vance? Oh, why the fuck isn't Minnesota investigating the leftists? Got it. Bro, if you buy into this, you're not smart. I don't know what to say. I don't even feel like there's just nothing will convince you. Your head is firmly planted in the sand.
An operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy's protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
Absolute.
The idea that
a federal officer has absolute immunity, huh? Okay. So you can't investigate the ice pigs for murder. Got it. That's what he just said, by the way.
Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to...
These are the radicals, just to be clear. Being in opposition to this is the most moderate position imaginable.
Go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked.
Oh, you don't want his widow life to be miserable. All he did was a widow murder, but it was for us, so it's okay. Gotcha. Well, at least we're being pretty clear about how things are now.
To do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official...
Gotcha. So he's just going on a rant. He's totally dodged the question completely. Zero answer to this very valid question. And then he's just going on a propagandist rant about the leftists, the radical leftists. After 2 minutes ago saying we need to turn the temperature down. By the way, this is a joke. This is a joke press conference. This is Goebbels going up on stage and giving a speech about how Hitler has the German people's best interests in mind. That's what we're watching.
Can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop. Go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. You said earlier that there's a left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and make it impossible for ICE officers to do their job. You told my colleague just now that there's an investigation going on into that network.
Yep.
So if everything that you say is true, how does being part of that network justify being shot?
Well, being part of the network...
That's a good question. That is a very good question.
Doesn't justify being shot, but ramming an ICE officer with your car, that's what justifies being shot. It's not a good thing, by the way, but when you force somebody to engage in self-defense, it's...
Self-defense. The actual answer here, if you're looking for the actual answer here is that ICE shouldn't be in Minnesota. And that's patently obvious at this point. But if you can't see that, I mean, it's getting to the point where willful delusion about this administration and about their practices and about the things ICE is doing is becoming something that you shouldn't even bother trying to debate or speak with, because there's no these people, if they were for many or most of these people, if they were going to wake up, they would have already,
almost a preposterous question. I'm not saying that funding some of this stuff justifies capital punishment. Nobody would suggest that. The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car, and that guy...
I mean, like, the meta for ICE apparently now is stand in front of their left headlight and get grazed by their cars. They try to drive away from you so that you can justify putting 3 bullets in their skull. That's where we're at with ICE protocol.
I acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life, and that is the tragedy. Now, there may be other violations of the law and other penalties that are associated with those violations of the law. For example, if you are funding violence against our law enforcement officers, I'm not a prosecutor. My guess is that's not the sort of thing that earns capital punishment, but it should sure as hell earn you a few years in prison if you're funding the effort to try to assault our law enforcement officers. What is...
Notice how he's reframing it so like anyone who is funding, you know, protests against ICE can be classified as this so that they can then suppress speech and lock people up for opposing their, you know, fascistic regime.
I'm sorry, guys. What's going on here? You guys are meant to report the truth. How have you let yourself become...
And you're meant to tell the truth, bud. But what are we watching here? Because this is the most propaganda bullshit press conference I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Agents of propaganda of a radical fringe that's making it harder for us to enforce our laws. You just asked me a question that presumed that the reason why this woman died is because she was engaged in legitimate protest. She tried to run somebody over with her car, and
she didn't try to run someone over with her car. She tried to flee as she was being harassed by the Gestapo. That's actually what happened, to be clear here, to be abundantly clear. Straight Nazis at this point, I mean, they're trying their hardest. They really are trying their hardest.
I defended himself when that happened. Next question.
So you notice how he doesn't answer any questions and then he just fucking goes on some propagandist rant? I've already said this like 3 times, but if we're at this point and you don't see it, then I don't know what to tell you.
I said next question.
Yeah. I said next question. I don't want to answer questions, bro. I want to go on rants. Give me some new material to rant and riff about.
I mean, you presumably watched the video yourself. There's not the slightest doubt in your mind, having viewed it, that the victim, you still believe that she deliberately tried to ram him despite seeing this video.
Look, I don't know what is in a person's heart or in a person's head, and obviously we're not going to get the chance to ask this woman what was going on.
Yeah, because your attack dogs murdered her in the street, bro. Maybe if they hadn't done that, we would be able to ask her questions about what was going through her mind. But the only thing going through her mind was 3 bullets from the gun of an ICE agent. So
certain of is that she violated the law. What I'm certain of is that that officer had every reason to think that he was under very serious threat for injury or in fact, his life.
What about the guy shooting through the driver's side door? What about that guy? Was he...
What I'm certain of is that she accelerated in a way where she ran into the guy. I don't know what was in her...
It's weird how he fucking was totally fine. He was totally okay. Completely just totally fine.
Heart and what was in her head, but I know that she...
I know what was in her head, and it's your fault, JD Vance. It's you and your administration's fault.
She violated the law, and I know that officer was acting in self-defense. It raises an interesting point.
Self-defense, bro.
Look, if people want to say that we should have a legitimate debate about, you know, what was she really doing, right? Was she panicking when she drove into this officer, or was she actually trying to ram him? That's a reasonable conversation. What's not reasonable is for so many of you to plaster all over the media that this was an innocent woman and that the ICE agent committed murder, which is what...
I mean, that's the truth, though. So what you just said a couple minutes ago is the media's job to report the truth. So why would they not report the truth? Oh, because you want us to buy into your propagandist narrative. Oh, gotcha, JD Vance. Please tread on me, sir.
Many of you have said explicitly, and some of you have said implicitly. That's what I have an objection to. The idea that this was not justified is absurd, and I think everybody knows it in their heart. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President,
in the green jacket.
Taking down the temperature, it seems like political violence is ratcheting up and riots could be around the corner. What steps does the administration have planned to try to unite America? Average people on both political sides are so tired of fighting with each other, and I think all the journalists in this room could agree with me that we don't want to be part of the problem. Do you
I
have any?
that.
Do you have any words to unite America?
You know, I know you don't want to be a part of the problem, and I think that's true of a lot of you. I'm not sure it's true for everybody.
You glaze us. You're state-operated media. You're fine. Don't worry. Don't sweat it, homeboy, homegirl. We know you'll give us favorable coverage no matter what we say or do. You're good. Huh. Funny how that works.
Because the reporting over this has been...
Let's see. Does he have any words to unite America? Let's hear it.
One of the biggest...
He started. Let's see. Not a great start, JD Vance. We're gonna give that we're at 1 out of 5 here. Let's see if he can raise that number. Come on.
Let's up those numbers!
Because starting out by saying some people are not interested in reporting the truth or uniting America, another fascist attack on the media, not a great start to uniting America, in my opinion. But I mean, that's just me.
Scandals I've ever seen in media. I've never seen a case so misrepresented and
the great uniter, I think they call this guy. Attacking the media a little more. Okay, we're at 0.5 out of 5 here.
Misreported when you have a guy who was defending himself and is now being treated as some sort of federal assassin by...
That's what he is.
So many of the people in this room.
Yep.
First of all, let me say about crime. You mentioned violence. One of the things we're proudest about is that you saw violent crime over the last year drop by 20%. Why is that drop by 20%?
I mean, like, numbers don't matter to this administration, right? That's why they come out with fake jobs reports numbers, and then the next month they get revised. You know, they'll say plus 80,000 jobs, and then the next month it'll get revised to plus or negative 40,000 jobs. Like, violent crime is down 20%, yet somehow ICE agents are the most oppressed members of our society in the minds of these people. Or not in the minds, obviously. He knows he's lying. He's a propagandist. But like in the minds of the people buying into the propaganda.
Is it because we're attacking our law enforcement officers, or is it because we in the administration are empowering our law? Also,
by the way, this ICE assaults is up 1,300% or whatever stat that they keep saying. One, if that were true,
based?
But two, they haven't even backed that up with any evidence, and they've been requested evidence to support that claim many times by many different outlets and different groups, and they refuse to provide it. So it's probably just a blatant, bold-faced lie anyways, which would be the least surprising thing, like, imaginable, because that's all these people do is lie, constantly lie.
Enforcement officers to enforce the law. I think that's one of the ways you take down the temperature, is you make people feel more secure. And
that's one of the ways you take down the temperature, is to bring the boot down on the American neck a little harder. Gotcha, JD Vance. We're at 0.25 out of 5 here. We're about to drop to 0. Like, holy shit.
Safe in their person and property. That's why we care so much about protecting our law enforcement.
He is the next president. I severely doubt it.
Because it accrues to the benefit of the entire national community. I think that we can absolutely talk about the ways in which, you know, we can lower the temperature by discussing differences in a reasonable and rational way. Again, I'm happy to talk with any congressional Democrat or any of you about our immigration policy, about why I think it's necessary, about why I think it's in the best interest of the country, about why the President of the United States was elected to actually enforce the border for the first time in at least 4 years. So here's the problem. That's not the debate so many people are having. They are actively covering for people who are committing acts of violence against federal law enforcement.
I mean, like, this is the person who's covering for people who are committing acts of violence against the American people. I mean, if we're going to deny reality as it's been presented on video, like, okay.
It is preposterous.
No, I mean, like, I'm surprised he hasn't wheeled out the "it's AI" excuse quite yet.
The way to take down the temperature is to stop it. Have your debates about policy. Attack me. Attack the President of the United States. Don't attack our law enforcement officers. They are trying.
Stop using them as attack dogs to terrorize American communities. I mean, like, it's pretty straightforward. ICE is not the military, to be clear. They can leave their jobs anytime they want and get a job as a real law enforcement officer, not a member of Trump's secret police. Like, anytime. They could do that anytime.
Trying to do the job the American people demanded that they do. They are not policy actors. They are enforcing the law. They should be treated with a modicum of dignity and respect. And the fact that they're not...
There's a reason why they're wearing masks. That should tell you everything you need to know about the morality of what's being undertaken here.
Is why incidents like yesterday...
I don't see regular cops wearing masks. Lots of people don't like cops. but I don't see cops feeling the need to wear masks. I wonder why that is.
The one final point I'll make about this is, look, there's a part of me that feels very, very sad for this woman, not just because she lost her life, but because I think she is a victim of left-wing ideology.
This is what J.D. Vance does better than anyone in his party. Thank God he's such an uncharismatic loser, because the reality is that he does this thing where he projects what his own party is doing onto the Democrats.
Young mother shows up and decides they're going to throw their car in front of ICE officers who are enforcing legitimate law. You've got to be a little
Wikipedia provided the full uncut, unedited video if you haven't seen it.
Brainwashed to get to that point to where you're willing not just to protest, that's fine, not peacefully protest, but throw your vehicle in front of legitimate law enforcement officers and drive your car into them. To get to that point, you have to be, I think, radicalized in a very, very sad way. I certainly wish that she hadn't got there. I know there's an ICE officer right now who very much wishes he was not put in the position where he had to fire a gun to defend his own life.
He didn't.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. What's your message, following up on that, what's your message to the leaders in Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota, the mayor of Minneapolis, to calm down the situation on the ground, on the streets? What's your message also to those protesters who saw that video in a completely different way than you saw that video?
Well, first of all, I think if you watch every angle of that video, there is one angle where if you squint, you can maybe tell yourself that it's not clear what happened. But when you look at all angles of that video, it is very clear that her vehicle went right for the guy. She actually collided with him. And then that's, of course, when he fired his shots. That's obvious, okay? So what I'd say to the protesters is, by all means, protest peacefully, but make this about ideas. Make this about disagreement with our policy. Don't use your protest as a justification or an encouragement for people to go and incite violence and participate in violence against our law enforcement officials. To the people on the ground in Minneapolis, meaning the local officials in Minneapolis, from Tim Walz on down, I'd say, look, why can't you just disagree with a given piece of immigration policy without turning law enforcement into the enemy? And think about, for example, a criminal law, where a police officer goes and arrests somebody because they violated a criminal law. If you're mad about that, go and protest the politician who passed that law. Don't attack the police officer who's just doing their job. We had a wide open border under Joe Biden. I happen to think it's a good thing the President of the United States has closed it down. If you think that's a bad idea, criticize.
We did not have a wide open border under Joe Biden. In fact, Joe Biden tried to get border tightening legislation passed. And who else but Donald Trump called up Congress members, Republican Congress members, and told them, don't vote on this. I want to campaign on this issue. So he's just lying. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Like, he's just bold. This is just a bold-faced lie. But is Good confirmed to be an illegal alien? No.
This administration for a policy decision. Don't attack our people for enforcing the law, because I guarantee you go to ICE, there are black people and white people, there are Democrats and Republicans, they are patriotic Americans who are trying to enforce the law. Attack me, lay off of our ICE agents. Yeah, in the blue, all the way, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. You called on Tim Walz to resign. Can you lay out the case as to why he should step down?
Well, I think Tim Walz should resign because it's very clear either that he knew about the fraud in Minneapolis, he knew about the welfare fraud, or at the very least he looked the other way. I mean, this doesn't make sense considering the Biden Department of Justice prosecuted this fraud scheme before Trump ever even took office. Which, by the way, is this administration's justification for ICE being in Minnesota is a fraud scheme that was already prosecuted over a year ago. And now they're just in Minneapolis causing chaos like they do everywhere they go. So, I mean, it's interesting why nobody had anything like this to say about ICE during Trump's first term. I wonder why people weren't talking about ICE during Trump's first term. Maybe they're doing something differently that is of concern. This is not like Lex Luthor, right? This is not movie villain fraud. This is the lowest IQ
she was a U.S. citizen.
Possible fraud. This is, we're going to take the absence of kids and set up a daycare center where there are no children, and we're going to call our early childhood education center the Quality Leering Center.
This is the vice president is repeating slop tuber propaganda to justify the killing of an American citizen. Like, what are we doing here?
By the way, if you can't spell learning, maybe you shouldn't be in early childhood education. But people got rich.
That's why
off
the
of
place
this.
was closed.
We know that there were schools who either had no enrollment or at least they overstated their enrollment. Tim Walz, either it was unbelievable incompetence or he was in on the fraud. That's one of the things we're going to get to the bottom of. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Can you explain the difference between this Associate Attorney General and a special counsel? And do you envision this being a permanent position or having more of a limited scope?
Well, it's going to be permanent until we get to the bottom of what's going on. So I think it's going to last for at least the remainder of the administration. What's different about it from a special counsel is, if you remember, the Jack Smith case where the special counsel was found unconstitutional, one of the big issues there is that that person was not an appointed person, completely aside from all the other issues that the person was a lunatic and that the case had no merit. There was a fundamental constitutional issue, which is that he had not been appointed by the president and he had not been confirmed by the United States Senate. An assistant attorney general, what that's going to allow us to do is appoint this person, have them confirmed by the Senate. That's one difference. The more substantive difference is that this person is going to be part of a very broad interagency White House that's being led from the President of the United States on down. And that's going to give him the resources, the access to material and information to make this person more effective. I think a lot of people have asked, how are you really going to get to the heart of the fraud? We've been asking ourselves that question for the past couple of months, and we think this is the critical piece at the Department of Justice to really ramp this fraud investigation into high gear. In the red tie, yeah.
Vice President Vance, I wanted to ask, what's your message to far leftist agitators who feel emboldened to obstruct ICE?
Oh, this is such a, journalistic question. Far left agitators. Gotcha.
Activity in Minnesota and around the country.
I'm doing journalism, chat. Calm down.
Well, I think they shouldn't feel emboldened because now they have an assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate their fraud and their violence more aggressively than it has ever been investigated in the United States of America. We are doing so much to try to find the financing networks and the domestic terror.
Again, I'll say it one last time. If J.D. Vance and if Donald Trump and ICE were actually trying to deport, violent, illegal immigrants, if that was their sole objective, I would support it. But that's not what they're doing. They're not. The whole framing of this issue is cooked, because the reality is that a Nick Shirley propaganda, far right slop tuber propaganda piece was posted. Elon Musk signal boosted it, and then the whole administration bought into it. Even though this fraud scheme, this fantasy fraud scheme that was already prosecuted before Trump ever took office by the Biden Department of Justice, by the way, it was the justification for cutting childcare funding to Minnesota and then deploying ICE there to crack down on Somalis, of which there are only about 80,000 in the country, by the way, Somali immigrants. So the fact that we're pretending this is the big problem facing Americans is ridiculous. ICE should have never been in Minnesota in the first place.
Networks that legitimate this violence, that fund this violence, and that, of course, engage in the violence. These people should not feel emboldened because they have, for the first time, maybe in American history, an administration that is not going to tolerate political violence of any kind.
Unless you're raiding the Capitol, of course, to subvert democracy. Then we'll pardon you. But otherwise, you're all good.
From anywhere. Yeah.
We are clear today that the entire weight of the federal government is behind these ICE agents and this ICE agent in particular. There is still a federal investigation happening on the ground. Does that mean that they are not looking into this ICE agent at all? They are just focused on the woman who was in the car? What is the investigation?
Of course they're not investigating the ICE agent. He's their attack dog.
The federal government has already determined that its weight is behind this.
You don't investigate yourself when you're wildly corrupt. What kind of question is this?
So what do you?
It is a good question though, to get him on record just dodging the question or lying. So,
I mean, when you say investigation, do you mean investigation of the shooting yesterday or of the fraud that's happening in Minneapolis?
Yesterday.
Okay, look, DHS, as I understand it, has
it's pretty obvious what she's asking, bro.
Investigation already ongoing. I know that other organs of our government are looking at this. So yes, there's certainly an investigation that's happening right now.
But the Minnesota state government, we can't let them investigate. We shut that shit down with zero legal precedent. But we're the law and order people, for sure.
But as part of the broader fraud investigation, a lot of what we're doing with the Department of Justice has already started. We've got over 1,500 subpoenas. We've got people this morning, actually. We're going door to door to actually knock on some of these fraudulent care centers, these fraudulent social services organizations to get to the bottom of what's going on there. So the investigation in some ways has already been ramping up into the anti-fraud element for at least a few weeks. What we're trying to do is supercharge it and make sure there's a designated person within the Department of Justice who completely controls that
Disputed Latayo, don't speak Spanish. It scares the magatards.
Particular focus.
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Vice President, on the agent, is he still on duty or has he been placed on leave, on administrative leave? And what really was the target of the operation on Wednesday? Of the ICE operation on Wednesday?
Well, first of all, it was a legitimate law enforcement operation. We were going door to door to try to find criminal illegal aliens and deport them from the United States of America, because if you come to our country illegally in violation of our immigration laws, then we have the mandate, and in fact, we have the legal duty to enforce those immigration laws. Whether he's been placed on administrative leave, I don't know the answer to that question. I'd refer it to the Department of Homeland Security, and they can follow up. I will say, look, I would appreciate everybody saying a prayer for that agent. Look, in the past 6 months, he has been hit twice.
Oh, man. We need to pray for the violent ICE agents, guys.
By a motor vehicle. One time, the first time, it led to over 30 stitches and very serious injuries to his legs. This is a guy who's actually done.
He only put 3 bullets in her head. He had to get stitches. He was a little sensitive.
A very, very important job for the United States of America. He's been assaulted, he's been attacked, he's been injured because of it. He deserves a debt of gratitude, and I think the media prejudging and talking about this guy as if he's a murderer is one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen from the American media.
He's a murderer.
Yeah.
Vice President, what is your specific role in the future of Venezuela? And I'm wondering, could you confirm reports that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was kept out of the planning for the operations because of her past concerns about military involvement in Venezuela?
So I've heard a couple of things. One, that I was kept out of the planning for the Venezuela operation. That's false. And another, that Tulsi was kept out of the planning for
Bro thinks he's on the team.
Venezuela operations. That's completely false. Look, we're all part of the same team. And one of the things that is really amazing about that operation is that we kept it very tight to the senior cabinet level officials and related officials in our government. And we kept this operation secret for a very long time. I'm very proud of that. I think it suggests that the team works very well together. Looking ahead, what is my role? Look, my role is going to be whatever the president asks me to do.
Has he asked you to do something yet?
Well, every single, or I should say every other day, I'm chairing the meeting that we do on this among White House principals to talk about next steps to try to ensure that Venezuela is stable, and as the president has directed us to do, to ensure that the new Venezuelan government actually listens to the United States and does what the United States needs it to do under our country's best interest. So I'm going to be as involved as the president wants me to be. So far, that's been very involved, and I'll keep on doing that so long as the president asks me to do it. In the purple.
Yes. Even
Mr.
beyond the war powers
Sorry,
resolution.
we'll go purple and then we'll go pink or whatever that is in front.
Royal purple. And then beige. All right.
Okay.
Are there any indications, you talked about the network, are there any indications that the lady who was shot, I know there are different reports from there, her wife said they were new to the area. Are there any indications she may have been a paid agitator, and maybe that there are others that were brought to the area, considering everything that's going on in Minneapolis?
I wouldn't say that she was paid. I don't have the evidence to say that one way or the other. What I do know is that she was violating the law. And if you just look at the eyewitness accounts, they were saying she was there to prevent the enforcement of the law. She was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. That much is obviously clear. The rest of it, of course, is part of the reason why we investigate this stuff. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President, even beyond the war powers resolution today, Congress has bucked President Trump on issues like tariffs. Are you concerned that President Trump is losing his grip on Republicans in the Congress, and what are you going to do about it?
No, I'm not concerned at all. First of all, we talked to some of the senators who were going to vote the wrong way, in my view, on this resolution.
Losing his grip on Republicans. At least we're being very open about the language we're using. Like, Republicans need to fall in line, be loyalists, serve the president's every wish and command. Like, at least we're being straightforward about the language we're using.
today. Much of their argument was based more on a legal technicality than any disagreement in policy. If you look at the people who actually voted, every single one of them have supported the administration's plan. Second of all, as the president, I believe himself has already said, every president, Democrat or Republican, believes the War Powers Act is fundamentally a fake and unconstitutional law. It's not.
What? They do? This is news to me. What? Bro is just lying.
Not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months.
Remember, remember when he was pretending to be Mr. Law and Order 5 minutes ago, and now he's saying that the War Powers Act is fake and unconstitutional? Holy shit, dude! You have to be such a troglodyte to buy into this rhetoric. Holy fuck!
And that'll continue to be how we approach things. Go ahead.
And so we are seeing, regarding Iran, we are seeing the protests in Iran these days. The cities are begging for help from the U.S. and Israel, naming streets in the city after President Trump. It seems there is an opportunity here that may not come again. Will the United States stand by the citizens of Iran? And if Israel decides to strike again the nuclear sites in Iran, is the U.S. expected to take part?
Well, look, we certainly stand by anybody who's engaged in peaceful protest, anybody who's trying to exert their rights for free association and to have their voices heard. Obviously, the Iranian regime has a lot of problems. And as the President of the United States has said, the smartest thing for them to have done, it was true 2 months ago, it's true today, is for them to actually...
Most peaceful administration in history. Let's go.
Have a real negotiation with the United States about what we need to see when it comes to their nuclear program. I'll let the president speak to what we're going to do in the future, but we certainly stand with anybody across the world, including the Iranian people who are advocating for their rights. I'll take just a couple more questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Concerning Venezuela, how would you assure the Caribbean?
We are so fucked, man. Well, I disagree, actually. I kind of found the response the last 2 days to this, assassination of an American citizen in broad daylight. It seems like people are finally waking up to how fucked this administration actually is. Thank God. Because I've been waiting on that for quite some time now, waiting for people to open their eyes to the reality of what's happening here. And people have been willfully blind for the past year, when pretty much since month one, Trump has been acting like an unhinged tyrant. ICE has been stomping on human rights since Trump took office. Like, the tariffs are completely stupid and baseless and doing nothing but costing American taxpayers and American businesses. Like, all of this is just stupidity. It's all stupidity and violence and trying to ascertain power and keep the people, compliant and subservient to this administration. They call themselves the administration of law and order, and yet the president is running crypto schemes, violating international law and domestic law, shitting all over the Constitution constantly. Like, it's just a joke. So I get why you feel the way you do. I feel like you should have already felt this way for the past year. And I'm starting to have a little more hope because I'm starting to see people actually wake up to the criminal, anti-American nature of this administration. So...
region, that they will remain a zone of peace, because some member states in the region are concerned.
Well, look, the president had a very productive phone call with the president of Colombia yesterday, and we continue to talk at all levels of government with a number of
I'm not worried about getting banned. If I'm not worried about the fucking government trying to do something, why would I be worried about Twitch?
Friends in the Caribbean.
Like, if Asmongold can come on here and give literal just race realism takes and just talk about how the filthy, dirty vermin are destroying the country, I'm not too worried. Okay.
Region. I actually think this is really good for peace in the Caribbean, because when you take away a major source of illegal cartel revenue, which is the cocaine trade, the fentanyl trade, other sources of illicit revenue, you actually remove the power.
Also, by the way, even Trump already abandoned this drug angle because it was completely false and made up. Obviously, Nicolas Maduro was not shipping fentanyl into the United States. Fentanyl is synthesized in Mexico with ingredients that are shipped from China. Like, Venezuela was not shipping fentanyl into the United States. So they already abandoned this stupid talking point, or at least Trump did, but I guess JD Vance is still trying to cling on Mr. Propagandist.
Of one of the main destabilizing forces in Latin America and in the Caribbean. I really do think, look, we say it all the time, this is the president of peace. One of the ways that you establish peace
The
in
president
your own...
of peace, as he just 2 minutes ago, by the way, was talking about, you know, striking Iran. Earlier this week, we kidnapped the president of a sovereign state. And then yesterday, you have Trump's secret police murdering American citizens in the street. President of peace. Don't believe your lying eyes.
Atmosphere is to make it clear that the United States is going to be respected, that the United States is willing to take power away from criminal cartel organizations and give it to legitimate governments. That's how we see the future of the Western Hemisphere, and we think it's going to be much more peaceful than it was.
I'm looking at a criminal cartel organization right now, and they are dealing in brain rot and authoritarianism. So
was certainly under Joe Biden. I'll take one more question. Go ahead.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. On Greenland, do you have a message for European leaders? Many in Europe reject the idea that the island could be for sale.
Well, first of all, Secretary Rubio, I believe, is meeting with the leaders of Denmark and Greenland next week.
So embarrassing, too, on an international stage to have this disgusting administration representing our country. Jesus Christ.
It is, but maybe it's the week after that. We'll continue to deliver some of these messages in private, some of them in public, but I guess my advice to European leaders and anybody else would be to take the President of the United States seriously. What has he said about Greenland? Set to the side the crazy overreactions that I've seen from the press and from certain people in Europe. What has the President said? Number one, Greenland is really important, not just to America's missile defense, but to the world's missile defense. Number two.
He's actually trying to make the case for invading Greenland. He's trying to make the case to other countries on why the United States should steal Greenland. That's crazy. What a world. Does he actually think it'll work, or is this just still domestic focused propaganda? I'm curious. Let's see.
We know that there are hostile adversaries that have shown a lot of interest in that particular territory, that particular...
The enemies, schizo, the enemies.
...slice of the world. So what we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it. What that is, I'll leave that to the President as we continue to engage in diplomacy with our European friends and everybody on this particular topic. And again, thank you all for listening. Thanks for taking questions. And I just ask you, look, this is politics, and often Republicans and get in arguments with the press about things. And I understand that.
Yeah, because they're fascists. That's what fascists do.
I think it's really irresponsible for you guys to go out there and imply or tell the American people that a guy who defended himself from being rammed by an automobile is guilty of murder. Be a little bit...
He is. If you swap out that ICE agent with a normal person or a criminal, a carjacker, for example, he would be out here talking about law and order and how this person needs to be drawn and quartered publicly. So, I mean, like, it's pretty obvious it was murder, and it's his fault, and it's Donald Trump's fault, ultimately, because I should not be in Minnesota for a myriad of reasons. This is a garbage press conference. This was nothing but nonstop propaganda, garbage talking points meant to brainwash the MAGA cult further. That's all this was. He wasn't addressing the American people. He didn't try to bring the temperature down. He didn't try to provide any real answers or legal justifications for anything that's happening right now. This is Goebbels. This is Goebbels giving a speech, attacking the press once again.
More careful. We're gonna talk.
Like that's all we just watched. That's it. I guess there's no video of this thing that happened in Portland. There's a 911 dispatch.
Stage at your discretion, police are en route. It looks like caller saying that he was shot twice by ICE and his wife was shot as well. Your top group is going to be Ops 1, Engine 7 with Medic 314 and Medic 321 with police en route. This will be a shooting.
Sorry. Why can't I grab this window? There we go.
Stage at your discretion, police are en route. It looks like caller saying that he was shot twice by ICE and his wife was shot as well. Your top group is going to be Ops 1, Engine 7 with Medic 314 and Medic 321 with police en route. This will be a shooting at the... We have a male who was shot twice in the arm and his wife who was shot in the chest. Your top group is going to be Ops 1. Stand by for additional dispatch. Stage at your discretion, police are en route. It looks like caller said...
I just listened to this like 5 times.
She backs away. Another officer moves in front of the vehicle. She pulls forward to the right. And then that officer fires 3 rounds at her, including at least twice when many say that it looks like
super justified assassination here. Super duper justified, by the way. Boom, boom. You are retarded if you think this was self-defense. Give me a fucking break. She was clearly trying to get away from this fucking pig. Like,
outside of the path of the vehicle. The SUV then continues a short way down the street, veering to the left and crashes into a parked car. And it was about 10 seconds from the moment that the agents exited the truck to shots being fired.
Yep.
The agent who fired the shots appears to be seen in videos.
Rapid escalation by the ice pigs here.
Afterwards with no apparent injuries. And this is, you had people starting to scream things like,
"You are fucking criminals! You're fucking criminals!"
And you had one woman with blood covering her face reportedly being heard shouting, "You guys just killed my wife." Also, you saw things like when the Tories eventually left the scene.
They'll do this to you, by the way. And then they'll go, and then the vice president will go up and call you a domestic terrorist and meme on you on social media. So disgusting.
People yelling and throwing snowballs, agents hitting back with pepper spray and pepper balls. Also last night, thousands gathered at a vigil for the victim and to protest ICE. Right, and that is, there have also been protests in other U.S. cities, including New York and Los Angeles. And actually in Minneapolis today, there have been more clashes between protesters and federal agents, with school even being canceled in the city for the rest of the week. And Governor Tim Walz announced that he was issuing a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. Warning protesters to stay peaceful and to not take the bait, arguing that the Trump administration was just looking for an excuse to deploy the military. Right? And he also seemed to compare the current mood and the potentiality of what's going to happen to what happened after George Floyd was murdered, because he was actually killed about a mile from where Renee was killed yesterday.
We saw it after the murder of George Floyd. There's folks that want to cause chaos. There's the disruptors in it. And while the vast majority of those protests were peaceful expressions of their First Amendment rights, there were those that destroyed property and put people at risk. The National Guard is there to make sure that peaceful protests are able to be done, and that those that want to do the destruction are stopped from doing that.
Right, and then notably in his address, he spoke out against federal interference, saying these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops, and also repeating a point that he made the day before.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government.
And of course, with the White House jumping on that to claim that Walz declared Minnesota is at war against the federal government, calling him sick and a dangerous lunatic, possibly insinuating that he intended to—
Of course they are. Anyone who defies their fascist authority must be painted as the greatest enemy imaginable, you know? That's what they're going to do. Anyone who actually, you know, values like their country or is like a patriot at all should actively be defying this administration. I hope every blue state just starts deploying the National Guard to keep ICE out of their state, because that is their job as state representatives, is whether they're senators, governors. I mean, obviously the governor has the power to deploy the National Guard, or whether they're in the House of Representatives, like any of these people have the obligation to protect their constituents being the people who live in their state. And clearly keeping the ICE gangs out of their state is how you protect them. So I hope every blue state starts doing this.
Pit those troops against federal immigration agents. I mean, you have at least one Republican lawmaker even calling on Trump to arrest Walz over the National Guard announcement. And well, for many, they see this as Walz just talking about using their National Guard to keep a handle on potential protests. I will say it is true that he and other officials are pushing back hard against the Trump administration's version of events, or with Walz urging the public not to believe what he called a propaganda machine and saying that the shooting was both totally predictable and totally avoidable. You also had the Minneapolis police chief noting that there was nothing to indicate that this woman was the target of any law enforcement investigation. And you had Mayor Jacob Frey calling the government's account of Renee's death bullshit, garbage, and saying to ICE,
"Get the fuck out of Minneapolis."
But then with all that, we've got to unpack exactly what the Trump administration has said. But as far as Trump himself, you had him sharing a different clip online where very little can be seen, and saying that Renee was obviously a professional agitator and that she violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer. Also saying in an interview with the New York Times, she didn't try to run him over, she ran him over. With him even reportedly having an aide pull the video up on a laptop in an effort to prove his point. You then also had Vice President J.D. Vance presenting it as just a matter of fact that Renee at least tried to run the agent over, which is also not clear from the video. Writing, do you
not
think
clear
this
at all, bro? I'm watching this right now. I don't know if I can show this, but I'll do it. I don't care. I know I can show it on YouTube. I just don't know if I can show it on Twitch. Look at this. He's already completely out of the line of her vehicle. Totally. Fires again. Like, give me a fucking break, dude. Come on. Watch his feet, too. Like, this dude was never in fear of his life at all. First shot justified, second and third probably not. Maybe. I mean, to me, the whole problem, like with this, is I feel like ICE should not be in Minnesota in the first place. But whatever. I'm waiting on a video of whatever happened in Portland, but I don't think there is one. Sorry I'm late. New episode of Story Wars just dropped. Nick Mullen and Sam Talent were on the panel. What have I missed so far? Oh, the main content. We watched JD Vance talk about how this soccer mom of 3 children is a domestic terrorist. American citizen.
Several sources that tell ABC News.
I can't find. Let me refresh again, maybe. I'm willing to bet she was a Karen. And you know what the punishment for Karen is in the United States right now? It's 3 bullets to the head by an ICE officer. Oh, Jesus Christ. It fucking should be. Listen, I get that you're being memey. This topic is actually going to drive me up a wall, though, so careful. I've already risked my channels a couple times talking about this, so. Bro, she was blocking the road on purpose and drove forward into a federal officer, obviously bad. She dies, but she's not blameless. I mean, blocking the road, not a federal crime. Or sorry, not a crime. It is a crime, but it's not a crime that is deserving of capital punishment. And she drove into a federal officer. She was being screamed contradictory, like, orders by different officers. She wasn't trying to drive into the guy, and he was barely touched by the car. Like, if you think that's justification to shoot someone 3 times through the side window, through the driver's side window, I don't know what, like, she was trying to flee. I don't know. Whatever. And that is all just ignoring the fact that ICE shouldn't be in Minneapolis in the first place. It's not like they sniped her from 100 yards just because she was parked in the road. Already said shots 2 and 3 were bad. Okay, well then, I'm not saying she's like, I mean, like, it's not surprising. I don't think that we should be deploying federal officers to Minnesota over a fraud scheme that was already prosecuted under the Biden DOJ over a year ago. Like, the fact that they're there in the first place is literally because of that Nick Shirley video, which was a terrible video and didn't give any actual context to any of that situation, besides knocking on a couple doors of places that were closed and then, like, going into a daycare center and saying, "Let me see the kids. We want to see the kids." Like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, the Trump administration deploying ICE to these places is creating chaos. That's all I see. Was the ICE agent a new hire? Did the guy have any sort of actual training? Feds should be there if local authorities aren't enforcing laws, but the fraud scheme was already prosecuted. They were enforcing the law, is what I'm saying. Was the ICE agent a new hire? Did the guy have any sort of actual training? No, but he actually was involved in a incident in June where he also stood in front of someone's car. Like, it's interesting. It seems he has figured out the meta for legal kills. They justify it as using your car as a weapon. But she wasn't even, like, there was no intent there. That's the problem. Like, one officer's telling her to move, the other officer's screaming at her to get out of the car. And so she starts driving as she has guns, like, pointed at her. Like, it's a pretty freaky situation. Probably not a situation that should be being created by the Trump administration in the first place, but... The DA said they have grounds to press charges, so hopefully the judge isn't a Trump glazer. Well, the problem is that he probably was a bad apple. He shouldn't have... Hold on. He probably was a bad apple. He shouldn't have stood in front of the car like that, and if he wasn't in front and she fled, they should have just taken her plate number and apprehended her later. I agree with that, 100%. Prudence indeed will dictate the government's long established should not be charged, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evil is sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing forms to which they are accustomed, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evidence, a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. True. Dude just submitted an essay. He submitted a good point. He's citing the Declaration of Independence. The problem is that the active government, I don't think, gives a shit about that or the Constitution or, you know, human rights. So, but to your point about the DA said they have grounds to press charges, so hopefully the judge isn't a Trump glazer. The Trump admin is trying to block Minnesota from being able to investigate or prosecute this case at all, which that's how you know the guy's innocent, right? Because the federal government is stepping in and saying, you better not investigate this. So surely it's all clear and all good. It would have been a better point if it was an Emily format. Dude, you're a dick. Bro just submitted, bro, what is the fucking emote? I don't know. Bro's cooking. There's no video of this Portland thing. So I'm sure that we will be able to get a very accurate and honest and unbiased retelling of what happened in Portland today from JD Vance. I sure bet. Or if there is video, I can't find it.
Was wrong in defending his life against a deranged leftist who tried to run him over.
Do you think this officer was wrong in defending his life against a deranged leftist who tried to run him over? Like, this is the vice president, by the way. This isn't some fucking YouTuber saying this. This is the vice president. Like,
then also had Homeland Security Secretary Ice Barbie Kristi Noem describing the incident as an act of domestic terrorism. With that, saying that she'll ask the Justice Department to prosecute the—
Of course they should investigate it, but it looks like voluntary manslaughter at worst. I mean, like, the thing is they're just going to completely and totally protect him regardless. So even if that's your position, which I would be, like, I'm not entirely opposed to that. Like, clearly it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter the truth of, like, what happened. There was always just going to be, like, absolute. I mean, JD Vance literally said it in that press conference we just watched. He has absolute immunity. He's acting as a federal agent. I didn't know cops had absolute immunity from committing crimes. I didn't know that. That's news to me. But apparently, if you're a federal agent in ICE, then it's okay. You can literally do whatever you want and nothing will happen. That's the vibe I'm getting from all this. And it just feels like it's all built on, like, false pretenses in the first place. The whole reason ICE was in Minneapolis, like, I don't know how I'm supposed to see this as anything but, like, them trying to be, like, authoritarian. Like, that's what I'm seeing. I would love to see it another way because that's pretty black-pilled. Maybe right. We'll see what happens. Yeah, true.
Stalking officers, saying she attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. And with that, painting the agent as a hero who killed her, and he used his training to save his life and those of his colleagues. And finally,
because why wouldn't ICE be an MSP? Well, because I'm not saying they should never be there. What I'm saying is that they're there based on a YouTube video that went viral that proved nothing, because that fraud scheme in Minnesota was prosecuted in November of 2024. Like, it was just like, and if you scroll down Nick Shirley's channel, all of his videos are like this. They're all just trying to, like, stoke chaos with migrants. Like, he even goes to France to do it. Like,
But Noem claiming that the officer had been assaulted before, and right with that, you have outlets now identifying him as Jonathan Ross. With Ross actually reportedly being the same officer who was injured.
Like, and again, I'll say this again. Like, there's a reason why nobody was saying anything, like, negative about ICE during Trump's first term, and it's because they weren't operating like they are operating now. Nobody was saying this about ICE during the Bush administration or during Trump one. And it's because ICE wasn't going around getting in, like, high-speed chases in residential areas, ramming their cars into people, camping outside of schools to, like, black bag, like, moms, like, picking their kids up from school. Like, people see it's inhumane. It's just a lack of, like, care for your fellow human that people are witnessing from ICE, and this is just another instance of it.
By another fleeing driver in a different incident last year. But of course, this is a different situation, and even if you take what the administration is saying at face value, it's worth noting that the DOJ's own use of force policy says that agents may not fire at a moving car that is threatening them unless no other objectively reasonable means of defense appear to exist, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. And while ICE and the Homeland Security means of defense.
mean, I know the law is just meaningless. Like at this point, the law has just become a tool to use when it benefits you and then ignore when it doesn't. So.
Appear to exist, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. And while ICE and the Homeland Security Department's policy on the use of force also says that officers are authorized to use deadly force only if the officer, quote, has a reasonable belief that the
Spag knocked anything over yet? She was being a real bad kitty today, but no, she's sleeping right now. Praise the law.
Subject of such force poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury, the policy further clarifies that officers should avoid intentionally and unreasonably placing themselves in positions in which they have no alternative to use deadly force. And so that's why you have people like an expert on police use of force.
True. This is a good
University
point.
No alternative.
Avoid intentionally and unreasonably placing themselves in positions which they have no alternative to using deadly force.
To use deadly force. And so that's why you have people like an expert on police use of force at the University of South Carolina saying, the way you evaluate this is you look to see what's the imminent threat to life, and there is none. She's leaving. And saying this is what we call officer-created jeopardy. And also explaining that the first agent to approach the car had escalated the situation, whereas local police officers are generally trained to de-escalate tense confrontations. So you also have people like another expert seeing it as less conclusive, but also arguing that the fact that the agent fired more than once is very significant. Saying if you're able to keep aiming at something that is moving by you, then you have some innate knowledge that it is moving by you and not running over you. But then also with all this, something that's really big is,
I mean, it's like, I would argue, and like we're so far removed from these problems at this point with like the current problems we're facing. I would argue that police don't get enough training, but police generally, you put a real police officer next to like an ICE agent, and the difference in like training and experience, and the fact that police officers across the country, especially over the last 10 years, have gotten so much better at least attempting to de-escalate situations. And then you look at ICE and there is zero attempt to de-escalate anything ever. Like they aren't acting like cops. They're acting like thugs. That's what I am seeing.
That, this claim that a driver aimed to use their vehicle as a weapon, it's often.
And I'm not like black-pilled like mentally on this either. Like I defend it. I thought Kyle Rittenhouse in 2020, I thought he acted in self-defense. Like I think he's a total dipshit, but he acted in self-defense based on those videos I saw. To me, this looked like a cop trying to find an angle for like illegal assassination. That's what this looks like to me.
Used as a justification for fatal law enforcement shootings of otherwise unarmed drivers. Or with, for example, a 2021 New York Times investigation finding that in many cases, the driver was just trying to get away, and that some officers, they put themselves in danger, and others, they appear to face no danger at all. And now in this second Trump administration, it's possible that we're seeing that with ICE. Just in the past 4 months alone, immigration officers are reportedly fired on at least 9 people in 5 states and Washington, D.C. And very notably, every single one of them were fired on while in their vehicles. And in each case, officials have claimed that agents fired in self-defense, fearing that they'd be struck by the vehicle. And at least one other person besides Renee died as a result. Or with that being with a Mexican immigrant back in September who was shot and killed less than a minute after being pulled over. And you had DHS officials claiming that he had hit and dragged one of the officers with his car.
Why don't ICE have to wear body cams? That's interesting. And why are they all wearing face masks? It kind of gives you the vibe more of a gang than a law enforcement agency. That's the vibe I'm getting. And again, I wouldn't have said this about ICE during Trump 1, even though I disagreed with Trump's approach pretty much in every way to immigration, because I think he does a lot of villainizing that I don't think is the right approach at all. I wouldn't have said this about ICE during Trump 1. I watched videos about ICE patrolling the border like during Trump 1, and they seemed like they were just trying to do their jobs. But like now it feels like it doesn't even feel like it's the same agency right now at all. Face masks make sense because lunatics will threaten their families. See, I get what you're saying, but like a lot of people really hate cops too, but I don't see cops, like actual like cops, like wearing masks, maybe that's like, I don't know, dude. To me, it feels like if ICE was doing their job and if they were just going in trying to apprehend like violent illegal immigrants and remove them, I feel like the masks wouldn't be necessary. It doesn't feel like that's what they're doing though. So
the officer who shot him was acting in self-defense, though notably analysis of the video, it has called into question the government's narrative. And when it comes to the government's narrative, it's about more than just these incidents that have or have almost turned deadly. But after Renee's shooting, you had Noam arguing that the incident goes to show that assaults that are ICE law enforcement officers are under every single day. And in his post afterwards, Trump claimed the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening.
And then this is like, the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. This is not the language of a president who's trying to lower the temperature or unite America. This is the president. This is the language of someone who's trying to like further radicalize people against each other. So, I mean, it's working. So,
assaulting and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. With that, time
Cartel is a strong arm against ICE, not local
assaults
Nebraska
against ICE
cops.
agents have been up by as much as 1,100.
Cartel of Minnesota. maybe on the border you could make that argument. I don't know about in Minnesota though.
50% year over year. But very notably there's no public evidence that assaults have actually gone up as dramatically as the government has claimed. And the administration, they've reportedly turned down repeated requests for data backing it up, even as the stat has been used to justify agents using masks and hiding their identities to operate with impunity. Right, an analysis of court records by Colorado Public Radio show only about a 25% rise in charges for assaults against federal officers through mid-September compared to the same time a year ago. And, you know, if we look deeper, just like with shootings involving vehicles, there's a pattern that goes back further. During Trump's first term, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol reported a 20% increase in assaults on officers from 2015 to 2016, and then a 73% increase from 2016 to 2017. And those stats were quickly brought up when 2 Border Patrol agents were found injured and unconscious, with one later dying from his injuries, with many jumping to the conclusion that undocumented immigrants were behind it, even though the FBI ultimately found no evidence of that. And what's more, those stats that may have helped shift public opinion, they were probably bullshit. The uptick in alleged assaults seemed to be at least partly driven by a decision to start counting them in the most absurd way possible. I mean, you had a CBP official explaining to The Intercept in 2018 that one incident the year before involved 7 agents who were assaulted by 6 subjects utilizing 3 different types of projectiles: rocks, bottles, and tree branches. So those numbers, 7, 6, 3, they were
7 plus 6 plus 3. That gives us 16, right?
multiplied together, so it counted as 126 total
126. Oh, I must have done my math wrong there.
Assaults. Well, we don't know for sure if the same bogus methodology is being used with.
I mean, we don't know what methodology they're using because they refuse to make the numbers public. They're just coming out and saying 1,300% increase in assaults against ICE agents, but then people ask them, like, can you back that up with any like stats, methodology, like anything you've done to like come to that conclusion? They refuse to do it. They refuse to make this information public. To me, that screams that they're full of shit. But
today, it is connected to where we are right now, including the conversation around Renee's death. And you've got folks like AOC being among the most outspoken in pointing to what happened. And
oh, whatever. I miss when I could just fucking I miss when I could just play video games and not care. What are we even looking at here? Just don't try to block roads and run over feds and you'll be fine, trust me. I don't know, man. That's stage 1 is shooting people for blocking roads. We'll see what's next.